Hello, elders. This is Tim Womack, Senior Pastor, First Presbyterian Church. It's good to be back with you. I am doing this little training video just focused at elders so that we can get some of our nuts and bolts issues taken care of so that you're familiar with how we organize our work as a board. Again, I want to remind you, I am sending you out the ordination and installation booklet. It will be sent out to you and you can have that, and this is where you'll get the ordination questions. I wanted to share with you just a little bit about what you can expect as you participate in your elder life with the meetings and so forth. So you've been elected an elder. You are on the session. You are one of 12 elders, ruling elders, and I am a teaching elder. We are those who have a vote for the session. There is no session meeting unless it's asked to go into executive session, which has only happened one time during my tenure, where we do not have an open meeting. Others are allowed to attend. If they are invited and they're given voice vote, they have the privilege of speaking at the session meeting. But typically, it's important that everyone knows the session meetings are not closed meetings. Now, they're not often the most exciting meetings, so we don't have a lot of visitors, but we do get a lot of important work done, and we do have responsibilities. So first and foremost, I sent out an email asking whether you would serve in a certain capacity. We all have assignments as officers, and depending on what your assignment is, you will work with a particular committee. You will be the one or ones, because we have multiple elders on different committees, who's responsible, along with the leadership of your committee, to move motions to the session. So, for example, if you're serving on fellowship, the elder responsible, or the elders on that committee, it is their responsibility to move any motions that are coming from the committee that needs session approval. Not every decision of every committee needs session approval, but some do. Expenditures that are not in the budget, other kind of new events, large events that have responsibility of a larger group often come before session. We'll figure all the things that need to come before session as we move forward. But in general, it is the elder's responsibility to take from committee and bring up to the session level so that we can make motions on those. One example of that would be discipleship. It is the responsibility of the session to approve curriculum. And we do that kind of in a broad stroke, but it is our responsibility to do that. So that's another example of what we would bring to session. So when we do come to session, you're going to get a copy of the agenda. It is going to have an opening study. It begins at 6:50, and then it goes to maybe 7:10, maybe not that long, but just a little devotion. And then we begin our meeting with prayer. We are asked to determine whether there's a quorum present so that we can do our business. And a quorum is 1/3 of the total group. It is actually 4. We never want to be that low and make important decisions as a session, but that would determine a quorum. So then once a quorum is determined, we go to what is known as our consent agenda or omnibus agenda. These are items such as minutes, reports, and so forth that just can be taken in one motion. We don't have to take each one on their own. That way we save a significant amount of time. Then we go on to the action items. If you have an action coming from committee, we ask that you would bring that forth ahead of time so that we have it in our minutes and so that we have it in the agenda. It is then given to the session for their discernment. So We have an action item. It comes to session. Sometimes we put together a rationale to explain why the committee made the decision it did or why it needs this decision approved, and it goes from there. So we have action items first. Then we have some discussion items. These may be important discussions that we need to have, but we may not need action taken on them. For example, a good example is Rally Day. We need everybody's participation in Rally Day, though Rally Day doesn't need to be approved per se by the session, but our participation needs to be talked about, and so that's another one. If we're massaging an issue that needs longer to come to a motion, we can discuss that and see where we are on that, and that sometimes takes place. But those are discussion items. Following that, we have our written reports. If they are written, people do not need to speak to them. That saves time. If we need to speak to a part of our written motion, just say, hey, this is coming. We just want to make sure you're aware. That's okay. We really want to save time, honor your time as leaders by not just getting stuck in the weeds of something that's already printed that elders can read. So we ask for your help in that. We conclude with unfinished business. If there's any business that we had already conducted that was left undone. And then new business, elders are always able to make motions on their own. They don't have to come on from committee, but they should always be well thought out and examined by others, I believe, so that we make sure that we're making healthy motions and not ones that are going to have to be changed later on. So then we end with prayer. That's our meeting. And if we focus on this, and in this coming year, I'm going to work really hard to follow Robert's Rules of Order so that we can make sure that we have lots of conversation, the will of the majority is done, the voice of the minority is heard, and we get our job done in an adequate amount of time. So not an easy thing, but the worst thing are just meetings that go on unnecessarily, and we'll try to avoid that. So that's your meeting. We typically have met on the third Thursday of the month. We're going to send you a schedule in the first session agenda, and that's probably going to go out on Monday, January 6th, Epiphany. And so we typically meet on the third Thursday of the month at 7 o'clock in the Earnshaw room up in the CCL building. Now, that will be decided when we go to our first meeting. We approve when we meet at our first meeting of the year. It can be changed if that's your decision. All our meetings since COVID have been hybrid meetings. So if you need to come to the meeting from a distance, you can participate in Zoom. We will help you with tutorials on how to do that if you need, and that will be very helpful. So just a couple of things for elders. Just know that the buck ultimately stops with us. This is not my church. This is our church. This is us. So the buck stops with us. You are called by this church, by God. And so you are responsible to move the church forward in responsible and acceptable ways, being kind and loving and gracious the whole time we do this, that we are to keep moving forward, and we're to seek the advancement of the gospel of Jesus Christ. These spiritual goals are first and foremost. We need vision. And as we go through this process with new staff coming on, with a new sanctuary, vision is critical. We need to remember that there's a difference between daydreamers and visionaries. Daydreamers dream and never realize the dream. Visionaries act and realize the vision. And that's what we need. Just say no to the status quo, the 7 deadliest words of any church. We've never done it that way before. And we have these buttons. I should be wearing it. They say, up till now. Up till now. The world is changing, as we know. The scriptures of God and God's presence will be constant, but we need to navigate the waters of this turbulent world. And so we encourage you to do that. Think about why you're called, own that reality, and be a faithful person in your service. Feel free to take charge as you have leadership. Now, you have to do it with everybody else. You have to serve faithfully and well. You just can't lord over people. Nobody can. But we work with other people to come up with the right decisions. And finally, I just want to share with you these very quick thoughts. Elders and deacons often get criticism. And the reason they do is because elders deal with sin and confront sin. Elders call people to be disciples of Jesus Christ. Elders give advice, and it is important to do so as they give, quote, pastoral leadership. Elders have taken leadership, and leaders are, on one level, easy targets for criticism. Critics seek safe targets who will not hurt them in return. And because we have accepted our ordination to make sure that we focus on the peace, unity, and purity of the church, people know that we're not going to hurt them as they, come to us with concerns. Elders are kind of put in front, and so they're on the front line of what's going on in the world. It's important that you understand sometimes people will come to you because they don't want to come to me with criticisms or, critique or concerns. And they may say, this is going on in my life. Don't tell the minister, whether it's a pastoral concern or a administration concern. And they may say, but don't tell the pastor. I think in many ways that's code language for run as fast as you can and tell the pastor. Okay. I have lots of ways to make sure that people don't know that has been shared with me. But if people share information that needs to be shared with me, I really encourage you to share that information with me, because we can't change anything unless we know about it. We can't address issues unless we know they're there. And particularly pastorally, if someone's hurting, we don't know unless someone else shares that with us. And so that's important. Never forget to pray. Pray, pray, pray. There's that acronym, PUSH. Pray until something happens. Never forget to pray as a leader. We are spiritual leaders first and foremost. If we are not acting loving, if we are not following Christ, if we are not full of faith and abounding in grace, how can we expect our members to be full of grace and love and gratitude? So we need to make sure that we're that, all right? It's not an easy job, but it's an important job. You are going to help this church go through some amazing times coming up. So just know that we are so thankful that you're leading us and guiding us in this journey. May God bless you. Bye-bye.